Welcome back to our TOEFL iBT speaking series. In this video, we'll be talking about some general advice for preparing for the TOEFL iBT. So let's get started.
Okay, so the first thing that I'd like to talk to you about is the fact that TOEFL speaking does not test your general or overall speaking ability only. This is of course very important, but it tests your preparation above everything else. It tests how well you prepare for the test. And so even if you feel that your day-to-day English conversation skills are not that good, you can definitely improve with practice. On the other hand, you also still have to practice for the test specifically, even if you feel like you have good conversation skills, because it requires a different skill set. Okay, so also remember you are graded by how you compare with other non-native speakers. You don't have to sound like a native speaker to do very well on the TOEFL iBT speaking. So remember these two things. Okay. Some other general things. The ETS, in the officially released document, the ETS tells us that it grades the speaking on 4 criteria: general description, delivery, language use, and topic development. Now these are somewhat overlapping, but I'll talk about each of these as they are described in the criteria rubric, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can improve each of these aspects. And there are a few things that some people feel are difficult to practice, but they all matter. Pronunciation matters, your accuracy matters, your clarity, coherence, and fluency. In other words, your grammar counts, and the way you pronounce words, the intonation, etc. These things count in the TOEFL iBT, not necessarily more than the content, but if this is something that you are worried about, you really should practice. Okay, so the general description, there are a few aspects. First of all, remember that when you answer the question, it has to be topic appropriate. In other words, you can't go off topic. This is, of course, very natural, but you'd be surprised. Very often students misunderstand the question, or they forget that they need to provide their own opinion, or they miss a certain part of the information. It has to be topic appropriate. Second, it has to be intelligible. And so you should aim to speak clearly, cohesively, coherently. It has to be coherent, which means there needs to be some development. You can't jump around. There has to be structure. And finally, you have to use diverse expressions. You shouldn't repeat the same structures over and over again. There should be some range in the way you frame your answer. What about delivery? Well, the ETS says that your delivery has to be clear. What that means is your pronunciation, intonation, enunciation, these things have to be clear. It also means that you should be fluent. There should be some fluency. And what that means is you shouldn't stop repeatedly, you shouldn't repeat very often. The first sentence should flow into the next sentence. You can have some minor pauses here and there, of course, but overall it has to be fluid. And it has to be sustained. And so you can't talk just for a few seconds and then stop. It has to be a sustained flow of language. And remember that pacing does not interfere with intelligibility. You should make sure that your pacing is not too fast or too slow for your listener to follow. In terms of language use, remember that the examiners are looking for both simple and complex structures. So it is a good idea to practice some more complex structures. Effective word choice, and so make sure that you know how to use words appropriately. that you can use the right word at the right time. Remember also that there are often phrasal verbs or idioms that get misused very often. Make sure that you know these correctly. In terms of topic development, this specifically speaks to progression. So make sure that it starts with the main idea, the details that follow are appropriate. Make sure that you don't miss any of the key ideas when you are summarizing, and make sure that your conclusion, your main points are very clear. Now, I realize that these things have overlap, but it's good to think about the way your responses will be graded. And as you are practicing, make sure that you can improve on aspects where you feel you are not as strong as others. So some students have very good pronunciation, but their pacing is not that good, so you can work on your pacing. Some students are very fluent, but they're not so sure of pronunciation or intonation, so you can work on that. Some students can pronounce and have very good intonation. However, they have problems with organization, so work on that. So make sure that you can improve, spend your time and effort to improve the things that matter most. In terms of pronunciation and accuracy, which are two big things, let me give you some general suggestions. So in terms of pronunciation, it's very good to listen carefully and to practice repeating the way others pronounce words and sentences. It's a very good idea to record yourself. I've done this many times myself in practicing pronunciation, and it's very helpful. Listen to yourself, listen to other people, and adjust. Remember to read aloud, and so you don't have to just think about things to say. You can focus on your pronunciation by reading out loud a text. And remember to start small. Start from shorter words before you move on to longer words, phrases, sentences, and paragraphs. So start small and build. The most important thing that you can do is to listen to others and listen to yourself. Furthermore, in English, it's very important to focus not just on how words are pronounced, but how words are stressed, how sentences vary in their intonation, and of course, there are many online resources that will help you. Finally, it's a good idea to practice with someone who is more experienced, someone who can identify weaknesses or mistakes and help you improve overall. Pronunciation shouldn't impede your understanding. It doesn't mean you have to sound like a native speaker. It just means that you need to be clear and intelligible. What about accuracy? Remember first that there are many templates that you can use, and some people feel that templates are not necessary, but I feel that it's a very good idea to start from templates when you're working on your accuracy, both in writing and in speaking. You should focus on note-taking. Make sure that you can take notes in the listening part or the reading part effectively, and make sure that you can read your notes and present them in a way that is accurate. So work on the templates, your active templates, and work on your note-taking. We'll talk about these in future videos. Remember to start by sketching your answers and then improve on them repeatedly. So instead of just speaking off the cuff, you can practice first by writing out your answers. Or listening to yourself and then transcribing your own answers, and this will help you to improve. Record yourself, and again, work with someone who is more experienced. So in general, I want to offer you a few strategies. These are the strategies that I think have worked best for me, and hopefully you will find some strategies that will work for you as well. So like I said, practice what 15, 30, 45, and 60 seconds feels like, first under pressure and more generally, but then in English speech. So practice reading for 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 45 seconds. Use a timer. You will have a timer, a countdown timer on the screen during the test. So as you are going on practicing, make sure you know how much text you can speak, how much you can say in 15 seconds, in 30 seconds, in 45 seconds, and how much time you have to prepare as well. But particularly know how much you can say, how many sentences, what it feels like. This is something specific to the TOEFL, very important. Second, remember that when you are taking the test, you are alone. There is no one sitting across from you. So practice talking to yourself facing a screen or facing a wall. Now at first this will sound and feel very strange, but you should get used to it. Practice being in front of a wall with only your notes, a screen, and your thoughts. So this is a good way to get into the mode of what the test-taking situation feels like. And practice speaking with lots of distractions, because remember, when you are taking the test, there will be other people around you. They will be talking, some of them talk very loudly, some of them even shout a bit, I think, in my experience. So practice speaking with lots of distractions around you. Play loud music in your room, or use headphones to play a news broadcast in English, something that is meant to distract you, and practice staying focused and staying on task. Even when there is a lot of English going around, when there's loud noise going around. It is also a very good idea to remember to review the same questions and topics and materials repeatedly. The way culture is built, the way our testing culture is built here in Taiwan, I don't think we repeat a lot of questions over and over again. But when it comes to speaking and writing, it's a very good idea to focus on the same questions, the same topics, and the same materials at least a few times. So personally, I practiced about 4 to 5 times before moving on to the next question. You can build. So maybe on day 1, you practice the first question. You repeat it on day 3. You can do a second topic in between, but give yourself some spacing out and some practice to review. And actively reflect on your own progress. What that means is you should really compare your first attempt with your second attempt and your third attempt, and reflect on how you have improved. Reflect on how you have developed and how good you are doing. Also, of course, if you feel like you are not improving as much as you want to, you can reflect on why that is and make some adjustments. I suggest practicing at least once every other day. Don't go more than 3 days without practicing. And practice about 20 to 30 minutes every day. It doesn't have to be a long time. It's very tiring, actually. It's quite exhausting practicing speaking. So 20 to 30 minutes every day, at least once every other day. Last, don't forget to practice self-care and self-compassion. Remember that when you are preparing for the TOEFL, it's very stressful, and show yourself some compassion and self-care. Don't overwork yourself to the point where you become too anxious or too depressed. Remember to be good to yourself. Okay, thank you all very much. See you in part 4.
Thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope by now you have some general ideas about what you can do in your daily life to enhance your speaking abilities. In the next video, we will focus specifically on the 2 independent tasks of the TOEFL iBT speaking section. So stay tuned.